Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Janessa Couture, and today we're doing one of my favorite haircuts. It's super fun. There's some really great volume. It's a little bit disconnected so that we can keep some super amazing length. So stay tuned. This one is one of my favorite cuts coming up. So the first thing we're going to do with Carly is I'm going to section the front and the back away from each other. I'm going to do this one a little bit different where I'm going to actually isolate the bang section and start there first. So taking the hair at 90 degrees, I'm going to cut to the head shape. So the hair in the front starts to slightly tilt forward. It grows forward down the slope of our head. And I'm going to work with the hair. This is where the disconnection starts to come. I want to see basically where I want the weight to begin. So I'm looking for the weight to start sitting just around the hollows of her cheekbone. So that's I'm using as my technical guide. Like to her face, and I'm cutting that whole section at 90 degrees to her head. Just editing perimeter here. I'm making sure, again, I cut the curls out just at a slight angle, about 45 degrees. I just want to keep the curl groupings intact. I'm looking for the little bit of hair kind of at the end of the curl that starts to explode out. I call it like a little firework. But the hair at the end of a curl, if it's not wrapped up into a coil, if it kind of explodes out of it and it's a little drier, it starts to open up the curl groupings from the bottom up. So you start to lose definition. So this is a really great way of just making sure the curls stay defined throughout the entire haircut and the length of your haircut. So starting my layering, what I'm doing is I'm still cutting to head shape, but I'm elevating just slightly over 90 degrees. I want to create a little bit more distance in between my top section and the neck section. And so the more you over direct past 90 degrees, the more the distance in between the curls increases. So if I drop my elevation to 45 degrees, my distance between my curls will begin to decrease. But in this case, I'm going to over direct up so that I'm creating more space in between all of my curl groupings. So continuing to work up the head, I'm going just above 90 degrees. We'll call it like 105 degrees or so, just to create a little bit more space in between all of my curl groupings. So moving on to the back, what I'm going to start doing is separating the hair into 3 sections. So instead of cutting the back into one, I'm going to divide it into the right side, the center, and the left side. I'm doing that based on head shape because especially when you have curls that sit so three-dimensionally like Carly's, it's really great to cut the curl specifically where it lives. So I'm just kind of going with groupings of curls where they're flowing from, what's in the right side, what's on the back, and what's on the left. So moving into elevation, again, I'm going just slightly below 90 degrees in this point. So I want to start to just create a little bit of weight in the back. So I want to maintain as much length as I possibly can. And the lower we drop the curls, the closer the curls sit together. So it's going to create a little bit of weight in the bottom. So moving into my second layer, now I really want to start that over direction and the disconnection that it creates. So it's like disconnected, connected. I want to create the most amount of distance in between my curl groupings. So by going to 180 degrees, I'm creating the most amount of distance in between each curl as they fall. So I'm cutting off a lot more hair towards the top of the head than I am at the bottom. So I'm creating shorter pieces on top to give a lot more movement. And we're going to continue on doing that all the way up to the top of the head. Now we repeat the exact same thing on the center section and on the right side. So when I'm adding hair to the perimeter, I'm going to start cutting at 45 degrees. I find that instead of cutting straight down against the back of your client, this starts to soften the fall of the curls a little bit more. So the effect at the perimeter is slightly more rounded as opposed to straight up and down or dense. I like the profile. I like the way it finishes. So I end up doing that for the majority of my cuts. So now I'm going into the same elevations or layers that I did in the first section, starting just below 90 degrees and then going right into 180 degrees to create more separation, more of that little bit of shortness on top. So dividing the back into 3 separate sections, it really does help to cut the curls specifically where they live. If you notice, the curls on this side are all flowing towards her right shoulder. So if I were to cut them all back, straight against her back, I would be over directing the curls slightly away from their point of origin, which means that they would end up being a little heavier. So you always want to cut your curls right on base from where they grow and use their natural growth pattern as your sections. So separating that bang section away, of course, dropping it in her face. That's a typical me move sometimes. I'm going to start to connect the last side. So we're working on the right side. If you notice, I started in the bang section on the left and worked in a circle around the head. I chose to do that because I really wanted the disconnection in the front to be the highlight and to be my guide length for where the weight will start. So I created that first cut on the side. I'm working all the way around and now connecting to the opposite side. And then I'm just working up the head using the exact same angles, again starting just above 90 degrees, going right into 180 degrees, and Carly's gonna ham it up for the camera. Okay, moving into that last section, I'm gonna connect that bang piece. I want the bangs to sit a little shorter around the center and longer towards the outside, kind of in a curtain formation. But I want them to be a little heavier, a little fuller, a little bit more volume right around that face. But we're going to aim for the ultimate length to be just below the cheekbone. Again, this is sort of a disconnected frame to create that version of a long curly curtain bang. So now just right inside the hairline, I'm going to create a little veil of shortness. It's going to make sure that the curls open up around the face and they don't live in her eyes. So just a 1/2 inch section right along the hairline, working your way back, cut just slightly shorter than the rest of the hair. And then we edit it, just picking our winners. Okay, so we've washed and diffused Carly's hair with some amazing DevaCurl products. I'm going to show you guys a tutorial on diffusing and some of my favorite techniques, and that's coming up in a couple of days, so stay tuned. I love this. You can see why it's one of my favorite cuts to do. There's tons of movement around the face with all these really great curls. So whenever you move, your hair should move with you. It should have tons of life, and this is a great way of maintaining all of your length but still having a really great shape as well. So thanks everyone for joining. If you have any comments or questions, please drop them below. I definitely make sure I get to all of them. So thanks so much for joining, and stay tuned for so much more coming your way soon.